there's anything that I can learn about how to properly podcast, I will certainly learn it from Duan.
What is he saying? What is his critiques?
He likes it more when we talk about personal stuff than the actual episode proper.
Okay, so completely counterintuitive to what John told us everybody was begging for.
Exactly. Apparently, Logan, according to Dewan, shares that. So basically, John's trying to sabotage our podcast. It's a good thing we got rid of him.
Yeah, it's handy. If only I could do it permanently, but very little I can do about that right now. I'm not going to prison again.
Aw, you need him.
And speaking of things that are easily cast away, Heil come slingers, and welcome to another soulless installment of the Disinformed podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm Michael.
I'm Courtney.
The less that you sort of linger into that void, Michael, the better it is for all of us to forget John.
I gave a split second, like pour one out for my homie, and then other than that, I just continued.
To the family of former podcaster John, our deepest condolences and warmest wishes for your better lives going forward. Somewhere Kristen is cackling, and that makes me happy. But indeed. Rest in pieces, you sick motherfucker.
R.I.P. and pepperonis.
What?
What would you like on your tombstone?
No.
Pepperoni and cheese.
So people will be like, rest in pepperonis, and then someone did R.I.P. and peace, and so it's like a combination of the two. Because it's like a lot of people don't understand, like, R.I.P. stands for rest in peace, and so they're like, oh, R.I.P. and peace, man. And yeah, that was my terrible description of a meme. Thank you for coming.
You too can rest in peckers of bronies whenever you're so inclined. Go right ahead. But speaking of heads, we are going to be speaking about the head of a church this evening in another stirring installment. Don't you pivot on me on the last second here.
All right, no, we'll do that one. That's fine.
What the hell,
Michael?
I had choices. Yeah, we have choices. Do you guys want to hear the choices, or do you want to just go into it?
You had told me previously that you were going to do this.
Okay.
And if you're not used to me just, pounding you into submission for no reason, like we would never do the show in the first place. So I was prepared for L. Ron Hubbard. And now you're telling me it's something different?
No. We could do L. Ron.
No, what did you have prepared, Mike?
So
we're a professional podcast.
They're both prepared. They're both prepared. That's why I had choices. So we have L. Ron Hubbard Part 2. And then we also had I titled it The Town That Went Mad, talking about a little quick summary of French town that collectively lost their shit.
Literally?
Yes. Well,
to quote my dear friend Jess, I picked Shane's topic.
Well, this evening I have for you extreme dysentery.
Okay, JK. I'm not John. I don't want it.
No, I'm intrigued. Continue. Tell me more.
No, I was just describing my physical condition. I'm coping with extreme dysentery.
I'm like, where would that fit on the stool scale?
Indeed. It's definitely a 7. No question.
Woo!
No. So, ladies and germaphobes, of course, for those who are unfamiliar, you're welcome. This is a much more entertaining format, I'm sure. We're going to have personal discussion this evening about all of our lives.
Oh, no.
No, but typically what we do here is we delve into a random esoteric topic, and in the course of explaining it to one another, we leaven in the occasional lie, and then it is incumbent upon the co-hosts to ferret out the fact from the fiction, and we have a glorious time doing so every single episode. Unfortunately for us, unfortunately for all of you listening, we do a little denouement at the end of the episode as well, just to explain what was lied about in case we didn't grab them. So that's usually what we do. But today we're just going to bag on John, our other co-host here, who is not present because he had more important things to do this evening. No, we just finished up recording a track, which is going to be the last song on our album.
Yay!
And so that is officially finished up, and we were super excited, and we were going to adjust our recording schedule because of that, expecting that was going to go longer than it did, and because we're pros, we got done much sooner than we expected. and everything is good to go. But then he had already apparently arranged to have sex with a man somewhere else, and he couldn't break that off.
I mean, say what you will about him. He is
Jonah
very
said he was
efficient.
working tonight.
He can't get Jonah. Come on.
That's true. You've seen Jonah's other boyfriend. That guy. Whew.
Yeah, indeed.
Whoa.
Super hot.
I am jealous.
So, all right. Michael, dealer's choice. This was your show, so you tell me what you're presenting, and then I'll fucking work in a segue here.
No. We'll Hubbard it. We'll Hubbard it.
No,
That way,
you
when we do a
you
part
were
3
super excited. I could see it
No.
in your eyes that you were really anticipating talking about the town that dreaded sundown.
Okay, all right, fine. I'm sorry. I
you have
really
to
leaned
save-
into it. I wrote a lot of because if I present part 2, then John will have even less idea what's going on in part 3.
Exactly.
And we definitely have to think about his needs, just like he thinks about our own.
I was going to say, if he cared, we would be listening to The Deer Hunter Part 2 as presented by me tonight.
Oh,
So
He
think that's
retweeted
happening.
that they're going on tour, and that just made me laugh so much today. I was like, you don't even deserve to see them on tour.
You're not even a real fan. You won't even talk about their albums.
you can't even explain their concept without a Google Doc.
Well, he did lose that Google Doc. Part of it.
Yeah. The first time Google ever just completely obliterated something as it was being entered.
Yeah.
Well, if
surprisingly.
he liked them so much, he would have done 5 episodes on them by now.
True.
No, I think it's proven that we just one step closer to AI because the computer, as he was entering in his bullshit, is just like, this guy can't write for anything.
I can't
I'm just
salvage
gonna,
this.
I'm just going to lose this. And so it vomited up his content.
It's like, oh no, I guess I turned off the autosave somehow if that's an option. I didn't save anything. Oh, shucks.
I can't do that, John. I'm sorry. Save my Deer Hunter episode, Hal. I'm sorry, John. I can't do that.
So, there are 7 lies.
That's the
Tell me
magic
lies.
number.
Tell me
Yeah.
sweet little lies. Tell
On
me
the
lies.
on the 16th of August, 1951.
Bullshit.
Actually,
Chill
did I
out,
even write
John.
the year? I think I may have accidentally deleted the year.
Are you sure
Anyway.
Google didn't do it for you?
Hoisted
Yeah,
on
no,
your
I'm
own
sorry.
petard.
You're right, you're
Somewhere
right. Google
Steven's
did it.
laughing.
Google deleted everything.
Oh no.
A postman. Oh, also, these are all French names, so I'm going to try my best.
Ooh.
I'm also going to try and put on a very stereotypically offensive French accent.
How about you, Gerard Depardieu?
Fine. I was practicing
That
some
was
of
a
these.
great
Nope.
pun, and
it was
I don't
so
care.
good.
I deserve better than that, Michael.
If I understood the reference, I probably would have reacted in kind.
Yes, please throw on a Pepe Le Pew and just let
Please.
fly. Oh no! Don't kill
Yes.
Mitchell me, please. God. Welcome
was
to
actually where-
Disinformed Burger, home of a Disinformed Burger. Hey man, take your order.
A postman by the name of Leon Arminier was
Oh.
minding his own.
I'm rating that a 4 on the French scale this evening.
Leon Arminier He was minding his own business, doing his job of manning some posts, because he's a postman, in the quaint little village of Pont Saint Espirit.
I'm deducting points for that horrible, horrible pun, sir.
Okay, that's fair. I deserve that. When all of a sudden, yes, all of the sudden,
All of a sudden, yes.
all of a sudden, call back, he was overwhelmed by nausea and wild hallucinations.
Did you have your pants off?
I think he still does, though it remains to be seen later on. He saw serpents coiling around his arm while the surrounded houses caught fire and their walls oozed green slime. He then felt as if he was shrinking, which is pretty hard to do while riding on a bike. He fell off his bike and was taken to the nearby hospital in Avignon. I think I pronounced it Avignon.
You sure did.
Yes.
Well done. Can I call bullshit on him shrinking?
No, that is true. He felt like he was shrinking.
He felt like he was shrinking.
What?
I just didn't know if he thought he was going to disappear.
No, I don't think he ever felt like he was shrinking that much. but he was quoted saying like he felt he was like shrinking as a person and everything was getting big around him.
I know how that feels.
While he was still tripping, he was put in a straitjacket and placed in a room with several teenagers who were also hallucinating.
Straight tripping.
Fortunately for Leon, but very unfortunate for the teenagers, they were chained to their beds to keep them safe. To quote him, some of my friends tried to get out the window. They were thrashing wildly, screaming, and the sound of the metal beds and the jumping up and down. The noise was terrible. I'd rather die than go through that again.
Are you sure it was jumping up and down?
They were jumping all around, actually.
Oh, okay. Because it could have been something a little more engaging on the bed. With the...
How were they jumping all around if they were also attached to their beds?
They were trying to get the bed was jumping up and down because they were...
Oh, the
thrashing.
Exorcist was happening.
Okay.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Leon was hospitalized for 10 days, spending some of that time in a coma, self-inflicted, when he tried to jump out of the hospital window head first, and learned that his head was weaker than strong hospital window glass.
Not a horrible thing to discover.
Yeah, it's a learning experience. It's something you need to test out for yourself.
We're just calling him Leon going forward as well, by the way,
Leon.
because
he won't be. He's just a case study.
Oh, I
if
see.
you will. Yes,
a prime example.
Mm-hmm. He spent another 4 months in a hospice, which was weird that he was spending it in a hospice and not a hospital, but that is what the source said.
They expected him on the way out at any time.
Apparently so. It must have been really bad. And for the rest of his life, would get incredibly sick in small, closed spaces.
Courtney, did you have a bullshit that you were going to call back there a moment ago? Okay.
No, we'll see what happens.
Okay.
I'm taking notes.
Can I call bullshit on the hospice?
No, that is true.
Okay.
That's why I was remarking. I thought it was weird that they said that he was put in a hospice for 4 months.
I wouldn't put it past you to flub on pronouncing the word and trying to wheedle your way out of it. By being like, I don't know why you'd put him in one of those.
I just can't read hospital. Hospice, hospital, tomato, potato.
Indeed.
No, it was true. He was put in a hospice for some reason.
Tomato Alfredo.
I like that better. Leon and these teenagers weren't the only people to suffer wild hallucinations, but rather just a small number in the outbreak of madness that occurred in the southern French town of Pont Saint Espirit. In all, around 300 people were afflicted with nausea, stomach pain, weak blood pressure, cold sweats, and low body temperatures, with many dozens suffering similar fates as Leon. But what caused this? What caused a whole town to collectively lose its shit? For the longest time, it was decided to have been an outbreak of ergot poisoning. But in 2009, an American investigative journalist by the name of Hank Albarelli blew this whole case open, leading down a rabbit hole of foreign influence, LSD, and the CIA.
Oh.
And that's what we're going to talk about today. How the CIA might have dosed a French town with LSD and then covered up for about 60 years.
Could you please define to me what ergot is?
Yes, please.
Ergot.
I forgot you were ergot.
Ergot. One of my sections is ergot to be kidding me. That's yeah. I'll talk about that later, but for very quickly. Ergot.
If you're going to talk about it later, as long as you're going to explain, then I'm happy to wait.
It's a type of fungus for just simplistic statements, and we'll cover more of it later.
Interesting.
I can see how you're aroused by it.
Mm-hmm. Even though Mr. Leon suffered his hallucinations on August 16th, the first people who started reporting hallucinations and other symptoms started the day prior on the 15th. Those who experienced any symptoms during that day reported nausea and other stomach issues, along with entering a depressive state characterized by anguish and slight agitation. And then I added in the joke, but that's just Mondays, am I right?
I love that you write jokes into your script. It's adorable.
And further that you explain that here, I wrote this joke. Behold, the joke is coming.
I didn't write that part. I was just I was preparing for just the disappointment.
Oh, we get the voyeuristic view of your script then.
Yeah, I wrote, but
Listen
that's
to
just
this
Mondays. Am I
jackass.
right, y'all?
That's
Like,
hilarious.
Oh, y'all.
Yeah, I
see.
wrote y'all. Am I right, y'all? These
You ain't all that.
these poor bastards also experienced waves of hot gusts, followed by similarly cold waves, twitching extremities, and while that was happening, their heart rates dropped to a very weak 40 beats a minute.
Could you tell me what the hell a hot gust is, please, friend?
Like, they felt like they're hot flashes, essentially. That's-
Okay, because I was like, hot gust sounds like you have
Like-
got uncontrollable gas.
Oh, that's fair. Some will have that as well, but they felt like waves of hot air being blasted in their face, and then almost immediately after that, it was cold waves. So it was like they felt like their body temperature was just fluctuating rapidly.
Okay, or they were facing the southbound end of a northbound mule.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see. According to the official report, all were diagnosed with ventricular tachycardia based on the slow heartbeat.
Tachycardia.
Very tacky. The first wave also experienced extreme insomnia that lasted several days. So, you suddenly get hit with a wave of depression, a wave of hot flashes, and then cold flashes in your gut. So it was essentially, you just felt like your stomach was on fire, and then it was rapidly freezing. And it just kept cycling between the two.
So it's just like
Now-
having a period then?
I
Lame.
guess?
These people are so weak.
Well,
Can I
mean,
also say I've had a bout of tachycardia at a single point, and none of these things are concurrent with that condition. Regardless of whether or not it's a cessation of blood flow, would usually tend to make you short of breath and lightheaded, not nauseous and depressed. So I'm gonna call bullshit on tachycardia at the very least.
Oh, you called it. Yeah, that was bullshit.
Yay!
Okay.
They
All
did
right.
have a weak heartbeat, but tachycardia is a fast heartbeat.
It's a fast, yes,
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
irregular.
I was
so.
like, I thought it was a cheap shot, but I'm like, you know what? I might be surprised. I would be cool with that.
As Courtney had said previously, my little hummingbird of a heart is not going to handle all the caffeine I keep tamping into my body, so
yeah.
I know them feels.
They actually were diagnosed with, I think it was bradycardia, which is a slower than
Brachycardia,
normal.
yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, I
Brady.
might have misread it. Whatever.
Here's the story of a clogged off ventricle.
Let's see. So, okay, they get a wave of depression. Their stomach feels like it's on fire. Then it feels like it's frozen, a weak heartbeat. And then for the people with more severe stomach issues, their stomachs acted as if they had been eating Taco Bell with that fire sauce that he used to carry. That is, they felt their asses were on fire. Yes, I wrote these jokes in, okay?
I love that you're building in like what you consider to be fan service on top of this as well. It's like, we talk about Taco Bell, right?
Yeah, callbacks.
Bless you. I
Also-
appreciate your effort.
If you're too weak to eat Taco Bell, that's natural selection and you should just not exist.
Well, this was a simpler time.
I'm talking about
like,
today time. If today time your body cannot handle Taco Bell,
whew,
Oh, it
Bye.
handles it.
it's just
Difficult is
not
it doesn't know what to do with it afterward.
Yeah. I can eat it just fine. It just doesn't know what happens after the fact.
In the famed words of Adam West, some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
For those unlucky couple of dozen people, it got worse. They experienced the above symptoms for sure, but it's hard to concentrate on all those symptoms when the whole world looked to be on fire, except for the snakes curling around your body. The morning of the 16th started quite tame for the local physician until around 10 a.m. when a farmer came in waving off imaginary bees. The farmer was claiming the bees wanted a blood sacrifice for their honey production.
that makes sense.
I gotta call bullshit on this. Because if you're bringing bees in, I'm automatically calling this as a spurious.
You're right, it was bullshit.
All right. You and the bees are gonna live in infamy from now on.
I wrote, while there was a farmer warding off imaginary bees, the bees didn't want the farmer's help with bringing back their goddamn honey.
All right, thank
So,
you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
We do like a good blood libel from time to time.
Oh my
though.
god.
Not the bees. Ah!
Hey, Courtney, have you seen anything of this yet? Like, have you ever encountered this previously since we haven't explained the joke yet?
No.
Okay, Michael will send you a clip of The Wicker Man. So,
Okay.
out of context, at the very least, you can just see Nicolas Cage lose his goddamn mind.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
perfect.
It's great. It's great.
All right.
Almost immediately, the farmer's neighbor arrived at the clinic, babbling incoherently, like I do, about snakes on his body. I didn't add that joke. That was just off the top of my head. From there, it skyrocketed, with the physician treating 75 patients by nightfall. Some 22 were housed in a nearby barn as the nearby hospital was full.
Holy monkeys.
Mm-hmm. Most of these people were tied to their beds to prevent them from hurting themselves, with nurses having to resort to horse reins when they ran out of rope.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that it's a good idea to physically restrain people having episodes or tripping, but
how else am I supposed to come?
well,
If I am making one John joke for the evening, I'm done. Thank you. Just want to make sure he doesn't feel like he's totally removed from the show.
we'll say, hey, we threw in one of your jokes, and then he'll be like, is that pissing, shitting, or coming? And we'll be like, oh, it's coming.
Yes.
He'll be like, okay, cool, thanks. I feel included. Let's
Michael,
see. Yeah, it's...
Was there really
Yes?
no room in the inn and they had to stay, in the manger?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They did.
Great.
Yes. Apparently, I don't know, well, because it couldn't, they just couldn't keep them in a normal waiting room because they were having psychiatric episodes.
Well, I mean, it's France as well, so hospitality is not something they're big on over there.
Yeah, I'm not saying here that was a good idea to restrain them. Like I said, it's actually one of the more dangerous things to do because they're already tripping and now they can't move or do anything. But the nurses didn't really know any better. It's not like people have been tripping on acid or anything like that and they have, to deal with
And
that.
also, as my friend with sleep paralysis here will tell you, it's no fun to wake up and not move.
Mm-hmm. Most certainly. So, even with all these chains and whips, ropes and reins, people still jumped out of windows. Yes, I don't know why.
We just came up with the show title, by the way.
Chains and whips, ropes and
No,
reins.
ropes and reins is
Reins.
wonderful.
There are at least 2 cases of men jumping out of windows. So unlike Leon, they actually succeeded. Let's see. My sources didn't specify where they jumped or how high the window was, but one can assume that they weren't skyscrapers. The town of Pont Saint Espirit had a population of a little less than 5,000 at the time, so you could probably assume that they weren't really tall buildings. One jumper leapt from the window, convinced that red snakes were eating his brain, while another jumped out of a 2-story window yelling, "I am a plane!" He landed, breaking both of his legs. He then got up and continued to run. I pictured him while I was writing this as he literally leapt out with his arms out, yelling, "I'm a plane," landed on his legs, broke them, got up, and still continued to run, making plane noises as he was like...
How are you running with broken legs?
I don't know how, but he did it. Several sources stated that this guy jumped out, broke his legs, and then proceeded to run.
I feel nothing. No pain for the plane.
Did he really say he was a plane when he jumped?
Yes, I wanted to make sure because I recalled someone else saying that he yelled that he was a butterfly, but I couldn't verify that one. But I had gotten several sources that said that he was either an airplane or a plane.
Okay.
Do you happen
so
to
that's
know
what I wanted.
whether his name is Jefferson?
No.
Okay, there's 2 people who are music fans that are laughing at that joke, and you'll figure out why someday, eventually.
Okay. When I'm older? Okay.
Maybe.
When you grow up.
Thank you, yes. Okay. While some were jumping out of windows, some tried falling into the nearby Rhone River. One man believed himself to be a tightrope walker and tried to balance his way across the cables of a suspension bridge. I didn't read whether or not he succeeded, and if he did, good on him. One of my favorite cases involved a man who tried jumping into the river, but was saved by his friends. As he was being pulled out of the river, he kept yelling, "I am dead and my head is made of copper and I have snakes in my stomach and they are burning me."
What?
Now, I'm somewhat incredulous about the fact that we have multiple people sharing the same hallucination surrounding snakes.
I thought that was interesting as well. And not even, and a lot of them aren't just normal snakes. Like they are red snakes.
The red snakes, yes.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So
Yeah.
unless this place has like a shared phobia and the world's most poisonous snakes out of Australia live in this particular quadrant of France, this does not make sense to me.
That's an interesting thought. I don't think any of the sources that I had read like cover that at all. They just kept saying, well, this person hallucinated about snakes and this person hallucinated about snakes and this person. Granted, there were a lot of people that didn't check themselves into the clinic. They were more just rambling incoherently in the town, and so that might have carried that way. That would be my
So it's apocryphal.
suspicion. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But
These
yeah, no,
red
that is a
snakes,
good point.
they are like overcooked baguettes. I cannot. I am so afraid of them.
At least they weren't like escargot or anything like that.
Escargot?
Escargot! Ho, ho, ho!
I love that is the extent of your French impression.
Yeah. I'm like, just try and sound nasally and pronounce it and just add that laugh at the
And
end.
ho
Done.
ho. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
indeed.
God.
Yeah, I learned my French from, like you said, Kel, or
Yes.
Keenan, sorry, and all that. Let's see here. Other cases involved a large man breaking his furniture to pieces to use as makeshift weapons to defend against the terror-inducing beasts assaulting his home. They did not say snakes.
Okay.
It was just beasts.
Interesting.
A husband and wife ran around each other wielding knives, so they were pretty much just chasing each other.
Ring around the roses.
Pocket full of knives.
I'll cut off your noses.
Oh, there you go. That's
There we
A man ran to the hospital yelling that his heart had exploded through his chest and that he needed doctors to help him put it back in. One of the more terrifying ones was a woman believed she saw her children ground into sausages, which now that I realize that did not spur on the conversation that we had prior to airing about the YouTube channel Ordinary Sausage. And
I'm
that's
still
just
calling bullshit
purely-
on it because out of my Sweeney Todd affinity here.
Nope, that is true.
Children sausages. I thought that was a euphemism.
It wasn't just adults that were affected, but children and a couple of animals too. In one of the more sadder ones, a dog started chewing on rocks until its teeth broke. And then some ducks apparently stood like penguins, which it did not specify how. They
What does
just
that
stood
even
like
mean?
penguins.
There's
That's what the
parts
source
of
told
their
me.
anatomy that would need to be, bifurcated or broken in order to facilitate that, my friend.
Yeah, no, it's true. Before you call it out, it's true. It just didn't specify how they were standing like penguins.
So to the French,
And
that means they all lined up.
they also lined up and walked around in a circle, which is also true. I don't even bother.
So it was the duck square dance.
Yeah, they got
Sick.
all their ducks in a row.
An Alabamian's wet dream.
Oh, Michael.
I'll actually I'll allow it.
Thank you.
I'll allow it.
There was a small boy that tried to strangle either his mother or grandmother, depending on the source. A small girl believed she was being chased by man-eating tigers. So again, a slight deviation from the red snakes. So that was interesting. Not everyone.
Here she comes with the man-eaters.
Not everyone had a bad experience, though. Some people
good.
claim to have heard heavenly choruses and saw brilliant colors. So they were like, oh, angels are talking to me. That's cool. One farmer shut himself in his house and wrote several hundred pages of poetry. I couldn't find any record of those poems, but I can assume that they were, in fact, masterpieces. I actually did want to try and find a couple of copies so I can read them. But
I'm fairly certain you've seen these before. They were all bundled together and published as the Voynich manuscript.
You missed a really
Not
great
wrong.
opportunity to just read any poem that you wrote as a child or convinced your child to write as one of your lies.
I could have, but I'm not that creative. In all the episodes, that's a reoccurring theme. I am not that creative.
You're
In
not
all,
wrong.
some 300 to 500 people were treated over the course of several weeks. Again, the sources differed. I think I quoted 300 earlier, but I read that there were either 500, 300, some number in between. And either 4 or 7 people died. Again, the sources differ. And 2 people committed suicide. 50 people were interned in a psychiatric hospital.
Don't you mean a hayloft?
Well, it used to be a hayloft. Now it is a psychiatric
We
hospital.
have converted the hayloft into a very comfortable hospital. Please follow me up the stairs. We're going to take you and strap your ass to a bed and fuck you unconscious.
Instead of therapy dogs, they had therapy cows, who also, yeah.
You milk that
Concluding,
joke.
it was a case of... I wish I could. Concluding, it was a case of ergot poisoning. French authorities arrested town baker Roche Briand.
Ooh,
and
I
closed
love that
his-
with a little cheese over the top.
Very, very good. Very good
Magnifique.
cheese. Especially when it's aged about 6 months. Ooh, yeah, that's good flavor.
I know you usually like them young, but I didn't know that young. God damn.
Well, I mean, most cheeses I don't mind, if it's a couple years, but you can't have it aged that long because then it starts turning into like a Munster, or not even a Munster. What's that nasty smelling cheese? But anyway,
Fremunda?
yeah, that's what it is. And it just smells horrible. You only need the first 6 months, and then it gets a lot of the flavor without that smell. However, because it took some time before the French authorities came to the conclusion that it was ergotism, Briand had already thrown away what bread he had made around that time, which I figure is standard practice. He wasn't Jimmy John selling day-old bread.
Yep.
If it's something that you don't sell at the end of the day, it's probably gone.
Freaky fast.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, with the bread gone, there was no way to test if it was indeed infected with ergot or some second thing. Now, like I said, ergot is a fungus. How can all of these symptoms that I mentioned before be connected to some fungus?
Mm-hmm.
Why would they not immediately, but why would they come to the conclusion that it was a mass ergot poisoning, especially since there hadn't been an outbreak for over 140 years?
And also, furthermore, is the entirety of the town patronizing this particular bakery?
No,
Because to get 500 to 700 people all sick from this thing means he's got the most popular bread in the whole of human history.
So I wrote a section that I skipped because I realized it was too dry even for my standards. But to get into it a little bit, just a little bit, how the French government dealt with bread and flour, it was a very strict distribution. So, and this goes back to Vichy France. I don't know why I said France like that. Vichy France.
You were in the midst of the accent. You wanted to carry it over.
Vichy France.
Vichy France.
So grain was hard to come by during World War II, and so grain distribution was strictly determined by the government. If you were a baker anywhere, you only got your flour from one source, and that was that. So you can kind of see how a problem would arise from that. If you got infected flour, that's all the flour you got. If you got poor quality flour, if you got flour that's old, that's what you had. That's what you had to deal with.
But isn't this something that took place long after that?
The system was still kept in place going into the 50s.
Wow.
They
were hit very hard by the war, apparently.
There were large swaths of Europe that had kind of similar rationing for years after.
Yeah. And it also didn't help that in the weeks leading up to this mass poisoning, there were a couple of other outbreaks of similar symptoms that were attributed to diseased flour. It wasn't ergot, but there was something in the flour that was causing people to be poisoned, to get nausea, to get diarrhea, vomiting, headaches. I even had a list of towns that I was going to try and read, but it's irrelevant at this point.
So ergo, ergot.
Yes. So they decided that since there have been outbreaks or infected flour in other nearby towns, based on the symptoms, they assumed that it was ergot poisoning spread through infected flour.
All I can picture now is Beauty and the Beast, and they're just like, there goes the baker with his bread, like always. And they're like, it's the only bread, guys. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's all moldy. It's like gray. And that was one of the main things that, the outbreak could have been a lot worse in some of the towns, but the baker noticed that the flour and the subsequent bread was gray and lumpy. And so he's like, I can't serve this. I can't distribute this to people. And so he actually alerted the mayor, and that prevented a large outbreak from occurring in neighboring towns. So they were already on edge about that, and I think that lent credence to this sort of
self-correcting
outbreak.
Michael. I appreciate that.
I'm trying my best now, because I'm overanalyzing French words. Now I'm overanalyzing my own native language.
It's good.
I can't imagine them like stopping the gray stuff though, because I hear it's delicious.
Well,
if you
it's
don't believe
gray,
me,
not because they
ask
want
the
it.
dishes.
Thank you.
Ergot poisoning is very unique and has been understood for centuries. It was a common occurrence in the Middle Ages, to the point where a monastic order, the Order of Hospitalier, I think that's how you pronounce it, of St. Anthony.
Well, we're back to hospitality again. Good.
Yeah, exactly. That's why when you said hospitality, I kind of laughed a little bit because of this. This monastic order founded a monastery in 1095 to treat ergotism.
And it was called Doubletree.
They actually became renowned for their ability to diagnose and treat ergot poisoning.
Okay.
That's actually one of the reasons why, or the reason why, ergot poisoning is also known as St. Anthony's fire, because of this monastic order that specialized in dealing with it.
So where did St. Elmo's fire come from? Sesame Street?
I actually don't know. That is a good question, because, well, you're right. Every time I hear about St. Elmo's fire, I think like Elmo. Like,
I also
either
like
he's
we keep naming all of these maladies after saints, because you got St. Vitus Dance, you got St. Elmo's fire, you got St. Andrew's fire. None of this is, apparently, it's just hell to be a saint.
Well, I mean, I think because a lot of saints are like, especially early saints, and I might be blowing this way out of proportion, were like burnt at the stake or something. I mean, a lot of people were burnt at the stake.
Those are martyrs,
so fire,
depending, and it doesn't always mean, the two are not mutually exclusive.
Oh, yeah, true, very true. So, ergot, I'm just going to pronounce it as differently as I can every time I get to it. Ergot is a complex fungus, which grows on a plethora of grasses and grains, like...
Plethora?
Yeah, a plethora of grasses and grains like bluegrass, foxtail, snapseed, wheat, barley, oats, and especially rye.
Can I call bullshit on bluegrass?
No, it grows on bluegrass.
Well, then, why hasn't it put out an album yet?
Well, it's not good. I mean, it also has to get funding, and it's hard to get funding when you're a fungus. You may be a
Got My
complex
Heart,
fungus, but
released in 2020 from the Country Brothers Band.
The fungus replaces individual grains on the stalk, which is actually kind of disgusting. I saw pictures of it. Like, if you picture like a thing of like a stalk of wheat and how it has the individual grains that come out from it, the fungus replaces it, and it almost looks like a little tendril, almost like a tentacle of sorts. And it's completely black, and it looks absolutely repulsive.
So would you say that they had some stock issues after this?
Very much so.
Did their stock plummet?
Yes, but people were still buying into them because they considered it a meme stock.
I see. I was like, how did this impact GameStop?
Well, there was an outbreak of ergot in the days leading up to it, and so people thought that it was a sign to buy into GameStop.
Hence the diamond hands?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They just had fractals growing out of these strange growths, and
yeah, they hallucinated that their hands turned into diamonds, and
I see.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yes,
that's why they were staring at their hands like, oh,
much like
why?
dragon scale before it. It's just a terrible malady, stricken many.
Yes, it's actually very sad. All proceeds from this week from this episode will actually go towards treating
the diamond-handed ergot sufferers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right,
it's a terrible case.
Please give all you can.
Mm-hmm.
We can take more.
And so because it grows as an individual grain on the stalk, it's a little bit, unless you're actively looking for it, it's hard to see it, and so it can easily get mixed into healthy grains when milled into flour. Ergot affects several hormone receptors, including serotonin and dopamine. Serotonin modulates mood, cognition, reward, learning, memory, and numerous physiological processes such as vomiting and vasoconstriction, or how constricted your blood vessels get. So you can already kind of see that there was a lot of overlap, especially in the physiological issues that serotonin modulates. So vomiting or just general nausea, and then blood vessels, which dealt with twitching or tingling extremities.
Tentacles,
that sort of thing. Yes.
Yes, most certainly. Can I go bullshit on the vomiting?
No, it's true. There's
serotonin impacts that?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, I thought that was weird too. Because I know it to be just like a neurotransmitter, in that it affects a lot of processes in the brain.
Okay.
But apparently it also is very prevalent in your central nervous system.
I thought we were hearkening back to the old, rationale that your eardrum controls the urge to vomit. Something in your inner ear will do that. And first you hear it, then you do it.
Huh. I've never heard of that theory. That's interesting. Huh.
I mean, there's something to be said for being disoriented.
Yes, yeah, because you get a lot of that.
But yeah, mm-hmm. I wouldn't think that that's something that necessarily had to be triggered. But yeah, if you do think about a process where your body does have to forcibly convulse to force that up out of you, it's not the natural process. But I mean, even that, your esophagus has to restrict in order to force things down as well. It's not like he's just got a hollow well that things fall down to get to your stomach.
It's just a pipe. Yeah. Nothing happens. Just woo.
I'm in. I talked myself through that one. Go ahead.
Dopamine is a bit more complex, but for our purposes, it modulates reward and motivation in the brain. So both of these turn on reward centers, make you feel good, that sort of thing. Exactly. Depending on the location and the grass it grows on, ergotism manifests in two different ways. To have both at the same time is very rare, so keep that in mind. The first manifestation causes constriction in arteries and smooth muscle, massively restricting blood flow, leading to gangrene. That, to quote a source, if not treated, victims had the sensation of being burned at the stake before their fingers, toes, hands, and feet dropped off. So that sounds like a pretty fucking
delightful,
painful way to go, yeah. Also, while they're doing that, while they feel their fingers on fire and falling off, they also suffer severe vomiting and diarrhea.
Oh.
I think Bruce Springsteen wrote a song about this at one point.
Yeah? What was it called?
I'm on fire. I remember. I heard it. It's in the 80s. It's a great song.
The second manifestation is dominated by muscular convulsions, double vision, and our friend, hallucinations.
Double Vision, another one of my favorite Journey songs. No, it was Foreigner. I'm sorry. I misspoke.
It's okay. I wouldn't have caught you.
I know
anyway.
You wouldn't have. I had to call myself out there.
You don't
All
have
for the
John
sake
being
of the
like,
pun.
I
I'm sorry.
got your reference. That's why he's so
I
useful.
don't think John listens to Foreigner either.
Oh, that's a fair point. Yeah.
That was an Aqua Teen Hunger Force pull, by the way, for everybody's.
Oh shit! I
The
haven't
Foreigner
seen that
Belt.
in years. Damn, this is a good show though.
You're cold-blooded. Go ahead and check it and see.
Since ergot has been around since ancient Egypt, it makes sense that at some point people would be trying that shit out as medicine. Yeah. This
I
section is
can't
called
wait
Treat
to
Me
feel like
Daddy.
I'm on fire. Yes, I'm sure.
I mean,
as,
people used mercury as a treatment for syphilis before they learned it didn't help, which I did verify. That's actually in the
Yikes.
show notes.
So you'll appreciate that in the course of attempting to record, we got a little delirious, and there's now a constant running bit where we've adopted the random aquatine, to bring in, oh, for God's sakes, Carl's character as our running joke. So then John got fixated with the city of Hoboken, New Jersey, and just kept pronouncing as Hoboken. At which point we have a string section in the song. This story has a payoff, I promise. But it is this very lovely sort of lilting and moving, stirring, emotional thing. And I was like, this just feels like the strangest ad to come visit Hoboken, New Jersey ever. And we kind of cackled at that. And then I was like, you can run the phrase underneath is like, Hoboken, you've never been happier to die.
It's got some gentle, like, lilting, like, strings going on in the background. Beautiful.
Oh,
I
And then
love
just,
it.
Hoboken, you've never been happier to die.
It's not that bad of a place. Jeez.
No, but then we've added on to it that later on that, you're forcibly penetrated at points. And so, yes, this thing kept dovetailing. So now my new phrase that John and I will be banding around, and I apologize in advance, was like, John said he got me in my ass pussy. At which point I was like, he broke my hiney hymen. So yeah, I'm telling you, when we were delirious, and I wanted to share the joy of that experience with all of you. So since we're talking about curing syphilis, this all, flew back into the same train of thought from my brain there. So I apologize for the diversion, but that's what I'm here for.
I think you guys were suffering some ergot poisoning.
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain that I experienced many of these symptoms over the course of the past 2 days, so I'm good.
Right. So people decided to treat that as medicine, because if you're going to use mercury to try and treat syphilis, why not use a hallucinatory fungus for some medicinal treatment?
I mean, they are the WNBA champions many times over. They lost it this year, though, so I feel bad.
Hallucinatory fungus?
No, the mercury,
Oh.
as you so simply put it.
Sorry for some reason. And they're our team. And they're our fucking team.
Yes, the Phoenix fungus. I'm a season ticket holder.
Oh, yeah, mercury. I don't know what he must be talking about, the fungus. Yep, That makes sense for a team.
I'm going to start that team right now. It's got to be an American. No, it's got to be a European Football League team.
Hallucinatory fungus.
The Phoenix fungus. It is a football, so it's important.
Football. That's important.
Yes, it's necessary to note.
During the break, during the halftime, that's when everyone starts taking just ergot, and they all just lose their shit.
Indeed. What I'm saying is you get a kick out of those games.
Uh-huh.
You really do.
Except, unlike mercury, ergot is actually useful for two treatments, one of which goes back all the way to the late Middle Ages. Since ergotism causes smooth muscles, which are the muscles that wrap around organs to help them contract, expand, etc., to contract, since it causes these smooth muscles to contract, it was actually used to induce I almost said abortions. What the fuck? Induce abortions. I'll get around that YouTube ban. It's abortions.
I mean,
What the
technically,
fuck?
it does take place in the body. I mean, they could try to lobby for it as the new term.
Yeah, they're not abortions until it's over.
Yes, you can't get you can't get an abortion in Texas, but you can get an inbortion.
Is this an in procedure?
From
It's a
Dr.
brand new
Michael.
procedure.
I'm gonna
It's
do
a-
an abortion today.
How do you get an abortion? Well, first we go through your hiney hymen. And,
So it is used to induce abortions, is the word I was trying to say.
Never before has that word been used with such glee.
It also is used to induce stalled labor, where the delivery just stops. Which I didn't know
when
happened.
when the dishwasher repairman calls you and says he'll be there between 12 and 4 p.m.
and shows up like 3
At
days
8?
later.
Yeah. Okay, I gotcha.
Since it causes the uterine walls to contract violently. So
Yeah, it's like evacuate the dance floor, please.
Exactly. It's like,
Hey.
well, it's like everything's closed, man. You can't stay here. You got to go out.
Hey, Mr. DJ, put a record on. I want to dance with my baby. Darkest timeline, I'm sorry. I about said kill it before it spreads, but I can't say that either. There's no good way out of this. I thought the extra crispy Japanese joke was bad, but this is so much worse.
I'm having a case of the vapors. Okay.
Too many Shane Weisers tonight. I'm sorry. I'm off kilter.
Michael, are you
It
sure you
also-
gave us the right amount of ergot before we recorded? I think we had too much.
Yeah. I think we had too much. I can't
know-
feel my fingers anymore.
That Subway sandwich tasted off. I just thought it was the locale.
As an aside, did you know that they recently in that court case found what was it, chicken, steak, and then some other third type of animal DNA in their tuna?
Oh, really?
There's a whole lawsuit.
They're trying to
claiming
debunk that though, because they think that the test results are false.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm like, I understand if it's like fake tuna because they've had these debates with other fast food, is the Taco Bell meat actually meat or is it just, soy
Mostly
or something
soy.
like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Man,
But like you got to fuck up really bad if like it's like, oh, it's tuna, but it's actually chicken, beef, pork, 3 other types of animals.
I'm glad I just ordered the dead baby sandwich then.
Jesus.
So speaking of successful deliveries, it also stopped maternal bleeding after childbirth. So to prevent bleeding out, it would also be used to stop it.
You'll just feel like your insides are on fire. Yeah, that's dissimilar.
I mean, insides on fire, bleeding out.
Same difference.
Maybe you might lose a finger or two, maybe a foot, but
sure. Tomato Alfredo.
Exactly. The second treatment was for something I suffer from time to time, migraines. Both treatments are still used to this day. You can get, I can't remember exactly, I didn't write it down, but you can get prescribed ergotamine or something like that.
Oh, no.
And that is, it's derived from the fungus. Yeah. So you can kind of see why.
Can I call bullshit on the migraine, please?
No, it's true. I thought that was really interesting. Maybe because you're too busy hallucinating that you can't actually feel the migraine or something. I
feel like if something's going to cause you to hallucinate, it should have a pleasurable bodily sensation.
The serotonin and dopamine spike would actually help the constricted blood vessels open up, and the blood flow would be better, which would help the migraine. Would be my guess.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's one of the reasons why peppermint is actually recommended as like a home remedy if you are suffering migraines. It doesn't cure it, but it's supposed to lessen the impact, the intensity of it, because it's all about, or even caffeine is also useful. That's a lot of medications for migraines actually include caffeine because it's supposed to constrict your blood vessels. And that's why they recommend taking caffeine or drinking like Dr. Pepper or something like that for migraines, but they advise against it for headaches. Because
are they brand specific like that?
Yes.
No Dr. Thunder here.
Doctors, 9 out of 10 doctors prefer Dr. Pepper.
What if
that's
I
why
only
it's got
have
a doctor
Big
for
K? It's the only thing available to me.
That's the one doctor was like, you know what? You can do generic. It's okay. You don't have to get a specific brand.
I only drink Big Red.
Ooh. Well, I mean, you kind of deserve that headache in the first place.
Indeed. Yes, a fine point. I also like that the two of you are reasoning things out and using logic, and I'm just making fetus jokes. So,
well, John's not here, so somebody's got to do it.
I'm trying to compensate. I'm sorry.
You're like, if I just lower my IQ enough, then maybe I could tap into that market. I love you, John, but
I've
no, there's
taken
no
up
but.
the
I just love
market
you.
share in being sophomoric on this podcast. Hooray! Let's
Though
toast to
I
that.
have to say, I'm giving you about a B so far because yeah, you did have a cum joke. You haven't done a shit joke yet.
Yeah, well, Michael, how about you show me how them tits fart?
Okay, thank you.
Nice.
So you can kind of see why, based off of these previous treatments. In 1938, a man by the name of Dr. Albert Hoffman at the Sandoz Laboratories in Basel, Switzerland, only a couple hundred miles away from Pont Saint Espirit, developed lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD, from chemicals found in ergot. Yes, LSD was actually synthesized from ergot, which I found absolutely fascinating. Being the mad scientist he was, upon synthesizing the drug, he immediately tried it and went on the first acid trip.
Like you do.
Mm-hmm.
I can verify some of this because there is a Tool song called Blame Hoffman. So I'm prepared for this.
Wait, really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. That's fascinating. I did not know that. So Dr. Albert Hoffman, the expert on LSD and the hallucinogenic effects of ergot, lent his expertise to the town poisoning. He actually was summoned to help give his, to diagnose and all that stuff. He actually refuted any claim that the tragedy was ergot or LSD. Granted, he created LSD, so he wasn't really impartial on that ruling. Still, though, he wasn't the only person to cast doubt on ergotism as for the cause of the madness. In 2008, a distinguished French historian, Stephen Kaplan, published a 1,000... Yeah.
Stevelin?
Steven. Did I say Stevelin?
It sounded like
Did
you
I
said
butcher it that
Stevelin.
bad? Oh, I'm sorry. No, Steven. No, normal Steven.
Hello, my name is Stevelin. I am here to address your rap problem.
I am the distinguished French historian, Stevelin Kaplan.
Historian?
Baguette. I'm done with this bit.
Your eyes, your whiskers. I want to kiss you.
Anyway, this Stephen Kaplan published a 1,124-page book on the history of bread in France called, and this, I guess I got to bring back the bit one more time, Les Ponts Mondeux, Retour sur la France des années oubliées, 1945 to 1958.
Quoi?
Or in English, Cursed Bread, Returning to the Forgotten Year in France, 1945 to 1958.
AKA why France has outlawed all wheat and wheat byproducts.
The first half is about the bread industry and the history of bread in France going back to the Middle Ages. The second half covers the forgotten years of the villagers of Pont Saint Espirit, the ones affected by the hallucinations. I'm sorry, I'm tickled pink every time I say it, so I'm just going to keep going with that.
Qu'est-ce que le pois?
Okay. He interviews many of the survivors of the tragedy and goes into detail about how it couldn't have been ergot poisoning, since it would have been much more widespread, since multiple bakers received the same tainted flour that Roh Briand had received. He even mentions a second potential theory that was floated around at the time, that the village was poisoned by mercury that was found in a pesticide. This book, which was written over the course of 35 years,
Holy crap.
ended without a clear answer as to what caused this mass madness. Which because if you think about it, it happened in 1951.
Mm-hmm.
His book came out in 2008, so we're talking about a 57 year
There's a decent amount of research in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially if he wanted to interview the people that were alive at the time, most of them, if he were interviewing around the time the book was published, they would be probably either dead or really, really close to being so.
Or chained to their bed again.
Or chained to their bed again for other reasons. Yeah, and so even after all this research, after over 1,000 pages, he couldn't get to a clear consensus as to what actually caused this. A year later, in 2009, we get a second breakthrough by the American investigative journalist that I mentioned before, Hank Abarelli Jr., who published the 900-page book, A Terrible Mistake, which was in all caps, The Murder of Frank Olson and the CIA's Secret Old War Experiments, which seems about quite a different approach to it.
It's a hot take.
Let's establish when the CIA was established.
Well, in 2009, their Secret Old War Experiments.
Oh, they're time traveling again.
Yes, yeah. The
Good.
Old War. You've never
Mother
heard of the
Horse
Old
Eyes
War?
is back. I'm glad. I was so ready for this.
I actually thought that this was funny. That it was funny that I originally heard about it and heard about the ergot poisoning and everything, and then at the end of the original place where I heard this story, then it went into CIA and LSD poisoning and all these other things. I'm like, holy shit! This is like a fake. This is like a real life Mother Horse Eyes.
It's all connected.
Everything's connected. Let's see here. In it, Abarelli explains how the poisoning was in fact LSD and that it was an experiment by the CIA, specifically under a project that I don't think we've mentioned on the podcast before. Have you all heard about Project MK Ultra?
Yes. Most certainly we have. Strangely enough. On
So
many
bizarre.
occasions, laddie.
I'm not going to go into detail about MK Ultra because that itself would be a multi-part episode, and stronger men can try that. Everyone can try it. I won't.
Did you just assume my gender?
He just assumed I was too dumb to do it.
That's why I corrected myself. I was mainly hoping Shane would do it. But if you want to do a 3-parter, 4-parter, I don't know, 10-parter on MK Ultra, Courtney, by all means.
I don't
Joke's
hate our
on you.
listeners. Why would I?
That's fair.
I already have an episode prepared on Pulse Ultra. Someone's going to get that joke. You're fine.
Okay. To summarize as quickly as possible, because I want to explain how it got tied up in the French in Pont Saint Espirit.
Well, they changed it to the bed, obviously.
To summarize as quickly as possible, MK Ultra was a CIA program that began in the 50s and went through the 60s. Known as the Mind Control Program, LSD and other substances were tested on both volunteers and unwitting subjects. LSD testing was one of the major parts of the project, as the CIA believed LSD could be used as a psychological weapon in the Cold War.
And we have talked about the derivatives of this when we were talking about the Stargate project, which is still one of the early episodes that got grand acclaim on YouTube for no good reason other than I'm sure there's not a lot of folks talking about it. And they go, oh, Stargate? Were we traveling to other worlds? And then, 10 minutes later, they're like, who are these chuckle fucks?
That, or like, oh, this person has like a deep investigative because Disinformed.
Yes.
Oh, they probably know all about the conspiracy of Stargate, and they're like, wait, are they making fun of me? Are they making fun of me as a conspiracy theorist? All right, I'm clicking out. The only way the CIA, or really anyone at the time, could get their hands on LSD was from Sandoz Laboratories. And so, a business relationship began between the CIA and Sandoz Laboratories.
I love that you've gone, Dexter over here.
Sandoz Laboratories!
Or laboratories to everybody else. You're fine.
Or Sandoz Lab.
No, some folks do have, because I think we've talked about this. I'll give myself shit on top of giving you shit. And how's this for turning tails? How's the turntables? I still say advertisement, which is not American pronunciation at all. That is very British. So some of us just, have preferences, and yours is laboratory. And I applaud that.
I also say aluminium.
It's a good one.
You're a sophisticant. Yeah. I've always said.
And Arkansas. Mainly because people that are from there people get upset when I call it that. Oh, Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
No, Arkansas.
Not theirs.
Does it end with a W? No. Arkansas. Anyway, According to Aberelli's book, the website of the U.S. Justice Department states that in the early 1950s, the Sandoz Chemical Company went so far as to extol LSD as a potential secret weapon of chemical warfare. Its main selling point was that a small amount added to the drinking water or sprayed into the air could make a whole army of soldiers disoriented, psychotic, and thus incapable of fighting. Indeed, a CIA memo from 1954 reports a CIA agent's conversation with a representative from Sandoz, who reputedly stated the Pont Saint Espirit secret is that it was not the bread at all. It was not grain ergot. The nail on the coffin, if there needed to be one, it's nail in the coffin. Why did I write nail on the coffin? It's literally just someone put a nail in the coffin and called it done. The nail in the coffin,
Dan.
if there needed to be one, was a CIA document labeled RE, or in regards to, Pont Saint Espirit and F. Olsen files, SO Spain, France operation file, inclusive Olsen. Essentially, or intel files hand carry to Bellin, tell him to see to it that these are buried. Essentially, this was a whole paper, a whole document that was labeled about the town and referencing Frank Olsen, who was a U.S. biological warfare scientist who dealt with LSD a lot, and he was actually dosed with LSD, I think it was 9 or so days before he allegedly committed suicide by jumping out of a window in Manhattan.
Did it say deliver to Bell End? Is that what you were saying?
Bellin. So David
Okay.
Bellin was the executive director of the Rockefeller Commission that was created in 1975 to investigate CIA's activities within the U.S. The commission actually was what publicized MK Ultra
Okay.
and the experiments that were within it.
Gotta say, because
So-
the British idiom for a bell end is reasonable,
No.
given the context of this.
Bellin.
Yes, I'm with you.
That's fair. Yeah. This file, while containing major redactions, outlines a possible plan of poisoning a shipment of flour with LSD and how it could easily be blamed on ergot poisoning. It even described working with the French government to cover up any action on their part and to call in employees from Sandoz to give ergot poisoning more credibility. Even with this bombshell, there still isn't complete agreement on what really happened to the townspeople of Pont Saint Espirit. The first author, Stephen Kaplan, later on after this book was published, discounted any LSD involvement, even with the file as proof, claiming that the symptoms experienced by the townspeople didn't line up with the effects of LSD. He gives several reasons for this, including the act of cooking would denature the LSD molecule, making it not useful. It would pretty
Inert.
much inert. Yes, yes. Since all those who either investigated or instigated the whole debacle are long dead, it seems that we might not ever learn the truth about the town that went mad.
It's a cover-up.
And that is my
Sentence.
my topic. Yeah, that is the end.
Well, that was delightful.
It was great.
Any lies?
I was gonna
Any
say,
stabs?
because it is too on the nose. Is the book about the MK Ultra involvement contrived?
No, that is all
Okay.
true. That there was a
And
book
those
published
documents
by
from the CIA also existed.
the document that I listed that was labeled existed, yes, and then
Okay.
also the memo.
And the
Yeah,
redactions and all that. Am
Well-
I dovetailing? Okay. I'm yes-anding myself into finding something. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
We'll
it's
get
fine.
back.
I'm like, I can say it, but I have to be so roundabout that you would have just said, "Oh, okay." The file exists, the title exists, but that's all that exists.
Okay.
The whole the file is completely blank. Only the label for it remained.
Okay.
Yeah, I added that lie in there because Stephen Kaplan discounted the fact that dosing flour with LSD when it makes sense, because the act of baking it would denature the molecule. Yes.
But I also, as I ask because I have seen CIA files, and when they are redacted, a lot of the verbiage utilized makes it very difficult for you to glean any real sense of a thorough thread of plot. So it's not something where there's a narrative thread you can very easily follow because of many of the redactions. So I was like, if it was redacted that strongly, I don't think you could have gleaned that they're specifically going, yeah, we're going to go to France and we can make it look like this. Those are the things you would probably black out.
Yeah. Even if it was like, let's say hypothetically we did that, like even that stuff would be redacted.
It's like the O.J. Simpson book, If I Did It.
Yeah. So one of the major damning aspects of it was that it was written on the label to carry to Bellin and see to it that these are buried. Since he was the executive director of the commission that publicized MK Ultra and made it pretty much delved into to see what the CIA was doing within U.S. soil, it makes it very suspect. It was already thought that Bellin had ties to the CIA, and he allowed a lot of stuff to get past him of sorts. And so that is the only kind of clue that there was any sort of CIA involvement with this whole incident. It is true that there is not a complete census. One of the books, I didn't write about this, but there was a book that had been published by a third person that came out in 2018 that mentioned, it actually detailed, it gave more detail onto the French authority side, where there was a lot of railroading and pretty much preventing other people from doing their own investigation into it, which was really fascinating. One of the articles I had read, the author of the article actually went to the town and interviewed the couple of people that were still alive. It was mainly just children that were alive at the time, or children of the people that experienced the whole mess.
Which is, as we learned from the Elizabeth Bathory episode, not necessarily always the most reliable storytelling if you're going for things that were more of like common discussions in the town at the time.
And they were aware of a lot of the outside press of the whole thing. They were aware of both of the two main books, the Kaplan book that was published and the Aberelli book that was published, but they weren't aware of any French involvement at the time, and a lot of them, or the French authority involvement that was released in the third book, and they pretty much they didn't really discount it, but a lot of them said, well, back then the French government didn't really care much about small towns, and so they kind of just like waved the whole thing off. They're like, it's probably this. I'd even give a stereotypical accent for that.
Oh no.
They probably just waved it off and said it's probably just this sort of thing because everyone's crazy. If there's a mass hallucination, it's probably ergot poisoning. If you hear about a lot of the strange cases where people, like, one of my favorite things, this occurred in like Denmark in like I think the 1600s. A couple people just started dancing one day. In like a town square, and it just spread to where there were several hundred people just dancing until they collapsed from exhaustion, woke up, and then kept dancing. And a lot of people blame. It's like I forgot.
It's called dance fever.
Dancing. Yeah,
I've listened to the song. It's delightful.
Saturday night. But they did more than just one Saturday night. I think it lasted for like a couple months or something like that. But a lot of people blame that on ergot poisoning because that's the only real like kind of fungus or anything that's native to Europe that would cause these sort of mass hallucinations.
I thought that was actually boogie fever is what they attributed it to, if I remember correctly.
Right. Well, that's what led the town to ban dancing.
Oh, I see. All right. So Footloose was filmed there.
That actually is a true story based on Footloose.
Yes.
They modernized it because it was back in the 1600s, but other than that,
everything draws back to Kevin Bacon. Why am I not shocked?
He was actually alive at that time too.
Yes, he was. He was all 87 years old at the time.
So, any other stats?
Courtney, do you have anything?
You mentioned two hallucinations that I'm kind of like iffy on. So you said man-eating tigers was one of them. Was that true?
That is true. There was a small girl that believed she was being chased by man-eating tigers, which sounds absolutely just terrible and traumatizing.
Okay, and then you had also mentioned like a couple chasing each other around with knives. That's just a regular like Thursday over here, so I was curious if that was a lie.
That is true, but I also thought that was a little bit weird. That like you had people hallucinating snakes, you had XYZ, and then you had a husband and wife just chasing each other with knives.
I mean, it's fairly well documented that the French will flee from combat at little provocation. So, I mean, if they were both just trying to run away from each other in the wrong direction and they see the knife, they're just going to keep doing this for a while. So
they just forgot to drop their knives, and so they kept turning around and seeing their significant other chasing them with a knife or what they thought, and so they just kept running in circles. Yeah. No, those are true.
Okay.
You get the brie. Yeah. No, you get the brie.
Sacre bleu. Okay, sorry.
Sacre bleu cheese, I think, is the...
Exactly.
Okay. One more game.
Alrighty.
Here, the gentleman who attempted to throw himself out of the window and just ran into the glass and knocked himself unconscious. Is that a lie?
Part of it is, yes.
Okay.
He spent time in a coma. They never specified how he got into the coma, and so I made up the story about how he did that.
All right. It was funny enough where I was just like, yeah, this has got to be creative.
Yeah. I presume it was a medically induced a coma, but it didn't specify. So I'm like, you know what? What if he just tried to jump out the window because it seemed like a lot of people wanted to, and the window he chose was just a little too thick.
Okay, you didn't want to attribute it to fungal fugue. I appreciate that about you.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
I feel
Any
better.
more?
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay.
No, go for it.
No? All right. So at the beginning, I mentioned Leon and how he saw serpents coiling around his arms and the surrounding houses catching fire and their walls oozing green slime. The oozing green slime is a lie.
That makes the most sense out of any hallucinations that I've heard. I've seen Ghostbusters.
I was actually quoting SpongeBob, but yeah, Ghostbusters is a good reference as well, because in one episode, they say, and the walls ooze green slime. Oh, wait, they always do that. So when I mentioned catching fire, that was my first thought.
Can I also say that listeners of this show in particular, given my sort of complete reliance on Ghostbusters to get me through lies, the new Ghostbusters film is being released this Friday, which was last Friday for those of you listening to the show. And that is my birthday. So, coincidence? I think not. Dan Aykroyd knew that it's me alone he's marketing to. My fervor for him and his projects is finally willing out. And so thank you, Dan. This show is actually sponsored by Ghostbusters Afterlife, debuting November 19th. So if you all haven't seen it already, you need to go out and catch it. It's a marvelous film, very inventive. And even though there's no Spengler, and I got to watch Ernie Hudson get buffaloed by every interviewer who just talks to Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and never says anything to Ernie Hudson. I'm upset, but what are we gonna do? Anywho, thank you for letting me divert for a moment. But I chuckled at that. I was like, oh, they're celebrating my birthday with me. They know I'm the Uber fan.
Pivot. It has to be done.
Yes,
yeah, of course. Okay, so green slime. Let's see. You got the self-inflicted coma because the glass was not or was too thick. It was 3 C's and not 2 C's.
Yeah, it's dummy thick. Well done.
Let's see here. You caught the tachycardia. You caught the bees and their goddamn honey. Let's see here. Okay, so this one is mainly for Shane because I know he really enjoyed the game Sekiro.
Damn it.
So I mentioned ergot is a complex fungus showing on bluegrass, foxtail, snapseed,
son of a bitch,
wheat, barley, oats, and especially rye.
I got so hung up on bluegrass that I didn't even hear it.
I sweated bullets for a second when you're like, wait, is this bullshit? And you said bluegrass. I'm like, I missed it. So yeah, for those unaware, snapseed is an item in Sekiro, and I chose it specifically because it is used to dispel illusions. Mm-hmm. Considering that a lot of people are hallucinating, it made sense to put in something that dispelled illusions.
Well done.
That's a good one.
I'm very pleased.
So, another one that you missed. So, I mentioned Albert Hofmann developed LSD. He didn't immediately try the drug upon synthesizing
Oh, well.
it.
Pussy.
He didn't want to wait for human trials?
No, he's like,
How
oh
prudent.
man, this should make me trip balls. Just immediately.
I should also say, the song title, I misspoke earlier. I'll self-correct so that you don't have to do an editor's note later on. The song, I believe, is called Rosetta Stoned, and then in parenthetical it says Blame Hoffman. So
gotcha.
it's a glorious song. It's a lot of fun.
So he didn't discover the drug's hallucinogenic effects until 1943. So a good 5 years after he synthesized LSD. He accidentally ingested a small amount of it. I don't know how he did. I don't know what occurred there, but he accidentally ingested a small amount.
So I'm licking some powder off my wife's thigh last night, and
realized, oh, this wasn't cocaine. This was LSD.
Suddenly there were snakes crawling down her thighs, and I felt like my stomach was on fire.
So 3 days after accidentally ingesting it, on April 19th, he purposefully took a larger dose as he rode home on his bike, which is actually, for all the LSD users out there, why April 19th is celebrated as Bicycle Day, which I thought was such a bizarre thing.
That's hilarious.
I mean, yeah, I apparently he's like, you know what? That trip wasn't that bad. And then he's like, I'm riding home on my bike. Let's trip on some acid. And, yeah, April 19th. Happy Bicycle Day, everyone.
It just makes me envision Andy Dufresne standing in the rain at the end of Shawshank Redemption, just seeing the arms spread to the air as he's riding a bicycle.
And he promptly falls off of it.
Naturally.
But at least he doesn't think everything's on fire and that he's shrinking. So,
and he's not coated in human waste, and that's important.
That is also a good point. And then you got the last lie about the file having major redactions instead of the whole thing just being deleted.
Okay.
So yeah.
You done good, kid. That was very entertaining.
I was so excited to write this. I wrote most of it in an afternoon because I just got really excited to write about it because it's so. Cases like this are just like so on the outside periphery of just like normal things. Like it's not every day that a whole town collectively loses its shit.
Yeah, it's not a common occurrence.
Yeah, and then it turns out that there might have been dosing of LSD by the CIA. And it's like, you know what? Whether or not it's a conspiracy theory or not, I like this so much that why the fuck not? I'll believe it. I'm going to say that for shits and giggles, I believe that it was a CIA cover-up. Because why not? It's not like it changes anything.
Certainly not. It's gravy for the brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Within your research, did you like read anything about them like testing the water nearby or like anything else? Like, or they were just like, nah, it's got to be this one thing.
Well, the water remembered.
Well, they could have tested it today and they would have remembered.
Exactly,
because,
it would know.
You have one little molecule of LSD and that you could fill up the whole ocean and all of a sudden you got mega LSD.
Yeah, homeopathy is actually how you treat the ergot.
But no, that was actually one of the reasons why some people suspected a French authority involvement because they didn't do all these sort of tests.
Somebody poison the water hole.
That's what I was thinking.
Damn it, I didn't even think of that.
And there's a snake in my boot.
Exactly.
Woody is based off it all makes sense now.
This was like
Woody's on LSD.
Oh man. Yeah. No, there was no real investigation based off of what I had read. And I could be wrong. I might have just not found the right sources. I don't know. I actually, how many sources do I have? I
7.
have probably 15.
Holy crap.
I searched hard. There was also a lot of definitions. I have like one on serotonin, one on dopamine, one on the history of LSD, one on the United States Commission on CIA activities within the United States.
Yeah.
You know, like,
we want to inform folks. Yes, that's necessary.
Yeah.
Context is important.
Yeah, because there's so many overarching threads that are part of it. Like, it's one thing if it's just, I mean, I got to explain ergot, which I'm glad I did because you guys were like, what the fuck is ergot and why does he keep saying it weird? Because it's spelled, just in case you weren't aware, Ergot.
Yeah. I've seen it before.
Yeah.
I just had
Okay.
never tried to pronounce it myself or thought it. And because ergo is a phrase, and we're thinking of France
Yeah.
here, that would stand to reason. So that's why I was chuckling.
Yeah.
It's Cabernet.
I've.
I had
Oh
that.
man, I love going to see that Cabernet.
Well, that would be cabaret, but we're
Oh, I honestly thought that's what you were trying to say.
No, it's the Cabernet
the
Sauvignon.
wine. Oh god,
Had one of them special ones, and the Chablis.
It's been aged since 1951, so I
Indeed.
wonder if it has ergot in it.
Or got my ass good.
One of my sections is literally ergot. To be kidding me.
Yes,
I was
yes.
proud of that.
You're well done.
So.
Well, if you don't read the headings off, the fans can't appreciate it, Michael.
That's true. The walls are oozing green slime. That's one of my favorites. And then the lesson was the friends we made along the way, i.e. the CIA.
What?
I swear, I love coming up with the names for these. I feel like I devote 90% of my creative talent to that.
See, now
I write worth shit.
I feel bad for having cucked you on naming the episodes for so long now. If this is what brings you delight and joy, and I'm like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. I'm not publishing that.
Oh, no. It's only for section titles. For names of episodes, they're all shit. Yeah, I appreciate that you do that.
As Courtney had to learn at one point when we were having these discussions, is that Michael does a temporary title for the episode that he puts into Podbean when we upload. And then I will go in and add in the show descriptions and then change the title most of the time. And unfortunately, at one point, I left the title that Michael had given as the temporary title for Courtney's episode. And it published that way because I hadn't changed it. And Courtney's like, did you just not give a fuck about my episode enough to change? Like, no, that was Michael being clever.
Oh, was that the King Tut's Tat for Tit?
Sure was.
Was it that one? Okay.
And I was like, I thought it was a decent episode. Why is nobody downloading it?
Yeah, I mean, there was also something that we need to learn that, they could be clever, but they still should actually say what they're about.
Yeah, we learned a lot from the course of trying to make this show.
That's why instead of a Whitey Mike talks weed, it's now
a Whitey
War
Mike
One.
explains dank kush, I believe was where it went. It is now Weed War 1 for those looking in the archives here. But yeah.
It's definitely a learning experience, but it's funny as shit.
Yeah, it gets better over time, kids, or at least that's what we're told.
Definitely.
Well, thank you.
So,
as always, that was delightful, and yes, I'll not step on your segue any further.
Oh, thank you. I was I'm so excited because John won't just immediately say shut the fuck up. How's everyone doing tonight, especially after hearing about that?
Well, this is what all of the folks are so desperately craving. If we're
Exactly.
to listen to our feedback, is they want our personal ribald tales of triumph and tragedy.
So buckle in, folks. We got another hour to go.
Woo-wee!
No, but all this talk of LSD reminded me of a story that I heard on a podcast called Bananas, and somebody had sent this in, and basically what had happened was this person went tubing for the first time in Florida, and they also took LSD for the first time while tubing in Florida. And so while they're going down this, I would imagine it's like a river or something, they came across this dude who's tripping. He saw a manatee, and, manatees are very gentle creatures, so he's like, I'm going to go touch it. So he gets out of his tube and he goes and he wraps his arms around the manatee because it didn't move at all. The manatee was a corpse of a manatee, and he was just covered in slimy manatee remains. So his friends, who were a little more experienced with LSD, pulled him out, and he cried on the banks of the river for 4 hours until his trip ended. And to this day, that story is probably the number one reason why I will never do LSD.
That's so sad.
I mean, that story feels very reminiscent of some of Michael's dating woes, if I recall. So
the plot twist is though I'm the dead manatee.
it me.
Yeah. Tag yourself. That me.
Oh, well. Tag me yourself, you coward.
Report
what you
yourself.
want.
I'm in this story and I don't like it.
Otherwise happening in Florida at the time is you got people selling tickets to heaven with a baby gator in the back of their pick 'em up.
Exactly.
And then later
It's a
on,
glorious
they threw that baby alligator through a Wendy's, right? It was a Wendy's drive-through?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Florida
do you guys,
man.
Do you know the reason why we hear so many funny news stories out of Florida?
Because nothing else happens.
So
Yeah, why?
They have really interesting like reporting laws. And so like when crazy stuff like that happens, like it just like almost automatically gets published. Whereas like other states, the reason you don't hear about their crazy shit is because they don't publish it because they're not required to.
Huh.
This is the To Steal the Smodco bit. This is their Scan BC, which is going to be something neither of you are going to... So there's a Twitter channel called Scan BC where they will post all of the things happening in British Columbia and Canada. So they will tweet all of the blotter headlines from the local police beats.
Oh my god.
Oh,
Of like,
sounds
guy
hilarious.
accosts Tim Hortons worker with hockey stick.
Oh no.
That sounds
And it's
beautiful.
delightful. This was a bit on Smodcast for I haven't listened in a long time, but they would routinely, Scott and Kevin would get on and just read the headlines from Scan BC. So it's just co-opting somebody else's bit, but it was delightful.
That's
That was
amazing.
beautiful.
And if it's not Marty Jannetty, frankly, I don't care.
True. How is
Neither
he?
should you. I haven't done a check-in with Marty in a good minute here, but I'm fairly certain he still is slightly intolerant and, still not getting into any interesting wrestling programs at the present. I haven't seen him involved in anything for a minute.
I
But,
try one arc and now people think I covered up a murder. Never again.
I might have to look that up. Well, if there's anything that might deserve a part 2, I'm sure the Marty Jannetty the Marty Jannetty murder mystery tour might need another stop.
Oh, I thought you were talking about his fans, like the Jannetters or something.
The
like that.
Jannetters. The Jannetter Deaders, otherwise
go.
known as the Manatee Hug.
Oh, God.
Oh.
That's actually my next band name.
The
So,
Manatee Hug.
the Manatee Hug. Oh, the humanity.
That's the first album.
And with another disgusting pun, I believe it is time to end this little shit circus. But thank you all for being here. As always, it is a delight to have you, and we'll see whether or not we let John come back. He thinks it's a possibility, and also I want to offer our humblest thanks and our sincerest appreciation for bad artist Jesse being here to present an episode for us last week. It's a lot of fun, and if you have not seen the After Dark where we all play a rousing round of D&D, or at least our start of a campaign for a quick one shot, you need to go check it out. It is over there on the Tubes of You, and it is delightful. We all had a very grand time, and I can tell you certainly that my rift bow is just waiting to get slippy again. Hashtag Make America Slippy again.
God.
I forgot you said that.
That's a sexual revolution that I don't think we're ready for.
No, we're definitely not. But
Well, if the walls are oozing green slime and we're hugging dead manatees, we can't help but be slippy.
if it's
And now-
oozing green slime, you should go see a doctor. I'm just saying
Well,
that for the record.
To quote John, it hasn't fallen off yet.
I don't.
Yeah, we
Would it
didn't
be
get any
considered
like
falling
rousing.
off or falling out. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's sad that we haven't had a rousing update on John's penis bruise.
Yeah, the when Loki sucked him off too hard and
That's true. Mhm.
he bruised the dick.
I mean, he was just laying there on my.
I think
there.
that is his new official handle going forward.
Dick
Is
Bruise.
good old John Bruce Dick Watkins. And,
Limp Diskit.
I'll go with it.
I like it.
allow it. Well, I believe that is going to wrap it up like a bruised penis for us this week here at the Disinformed podcast. And stick around, because after this show, we may have ourselves an After Dark brewing where Michael and I show Courtney Nicolas Cage fighting some bees. I think it's going to be worth it to have a payoff for Courtney's own joke, who assailed Michael with the bees previously. So if you want to watch a little torture, come join us on Wednesdays on the Tubes of View. And of course, if you dig what you're hearing here, please do a little rate and review on your preferred podcast provider app. Every little bit helps, as Michael will attest. And naturally, we do have the link tree below here in your show notes as you're listening. If you want to follow us on any of our socials, see the Dark Lord's work that Courtney's doing over on the TikToks and all of our other nonsense that we post routinely. But for the Disinformed podcast this week, I'm Shane.
I'm Michael.
I'm Courtney.
I gave a pause.
I'm about to pause you.
And zippity zoop, we're out of here.
I need more enthusiasm.
Fine.
You can't
Do it in a French
coin
accent.
a phrase.
Okay, right.
Thank you. I was like, you cannot coin the parting phrase and then like lackadaisically like zippity zoop, we're out of here. Squidward, you don't get to do this. So yes, give me your best, Cal Mitchell here.
Oh, zippity zoop, we're out of here. So fucking
What?
I couldn't do it. I can't do accents.
That's a bad Bronx, not. Oh man. Welcome to Hoboken. You'll never be happier to die.
Welcome to Hoboken. Zippity zoop, we're out of here.
Zip out the zoop. We're out of here.